You guys asked for it, so I'm going to tell you what I would do. Hey everybody, this is Matt and we're at Texas Toast Guitars in the wood shop. Earlier this week, my good buddy Paul brought me a super cool piece of artwork, and the only place that I could think to hang it, because it's really big. The only place I could think to hang it was here in the back of the wood shop. And he made this after Lemmy Kilmister died, and he just can't keep it anymore because he's moving. And it's a whole long story, and I'll let Paul tell you guys about it in the comment section below. But in the plus column, I got it. And so thank you to my good buddy Paul and his wife Carrie. They're moving to Portugal, and it's not that they don't allow Lemmy Kilmister in Portugal, but they're kind of just picking up and relocating, and they can't take a whole lot of stuff. So he very graciously donated his What Would Lemmy Do custom print that he had made several years ago. And I wanted you guys to see it because this is probably the cleanest it's ever going to be in my shop from now on. But while I was hanging it, I thought, you know what? I was inspired by someone who said, you know, Matt, people always ask what you would do in certain situations. So why don't you do a video talking about what you would do? And they took inspiration from the What Would Lemmy Do? So I thought that'd be a good idea. Why don't we talk today a little bit about what I would do in very specific situations that you guys have asked for. And so let's jump right in. I'm going to talk about some tools that I would buy, some techniques that I would use, and just some ideas to kind of maybe get your creative juices flowing a little bit. So enough with the bullshit talk. Let's jump right in. All right, let's start with one that should be a no-brainer, but I have forgotten to do this a couple times. So the first thing that if you ask me, what would you do, Matt? Well, what would Matt would do in this situation is I'm about to clean up the fret ends on this Challenger Deluxe for our buddy Rod. And I'm going to take some time to prep the guitar so that if something happens, I don't get a scratch on it. Now, depending on what finish you use, you're going to have to tailor your masking. But what Matt would do in this situation, whether you're building a new guitar or doing repair work on an older guitar, I would absolutely advise you to protect the guitar's finish from your tools. So this is just a little bit of protection here that I can put on here. Usually I just put a couple thicknesses of masking tape. And again, if you're doing a repair on an old guitar that has old lacquer on it, you're probably not going to be able to just use any old blue masking tape. But in this case, I can, because I know what finish this is. And when I'm going by and doing stuff to frets, or if I have a tool and I'm running along the side of the fretboard, I can, if I happen to scratch this masking tape a little bit, no harm, no foul. And I tell you what, guys, it is a lot easier to remember to do this than it is to forget and have to fix it later. You can ask Chris Fesker, who has had to fix a couple of these for me, and he will tell you that finding the right masking tape or protective layer is absolutely easier than doing a finish repair. Doesn't matter if it's an old guitar or a brand new guitar. All right? Another thing I would like to encourage you guys to do is make a bunch of the same guitars over and over and over again so you get your technique down. Now here is a whole bunch of Challengers on this rack here, and let's see. So here's one that's ready for assembly. Here's one right behind it that is ready for pickup. There's I don't know. There's probably a dozen Challengers right here, and there's a bunch more over there, and a bunch more back in the wood shop. But having a catalog that is one guitar that you have made all the mistakes on in the early versions, and you are really proud of, whether it's your design or someone else's, will really go a long way to helping you guys become good guitar builders. Okay, so for those of you who might not know, the Challenger is a shape that I came up with many years ago, and it's gone through lots of iterations, and now we have finally landed on something that we truly love, Chris and I both. And whether it is one of these deluxes that we're doing a run of. In fact, we're kind of right in the middle of a bunch of those guitars, or like I said, this one here that is very similar. This is just the Challenger Standard, but they're all hollow, etc. Or, you know, if you wanted something maybe a little more, here is a carved top version. So lots of guitars that are very similar to each other with very small tweaks. Here's one for Doug Santaniello. It's all walnut. Every single thing on this guitar, with the exception of the binding, is walnut. And yeah, so have a catalog of work that you can kind of fall back on and remember where you were and then see where you're going. And I tell you what, gang, making a lot of the same guitar will pay off huge. Another thing that I would do if you were to ask me what Matt would do is I would do some versions of the classics. For example, if you haven't made a Telecaster or if you haven't made a Stratocaster, you are failing as a guitar builder. Sometimes recreating these classic designs that people love will give you an understanding of maybe why some of the things that they did on these are what they did on these. So, and I've made, guys, I know I constantly commiserate with you guys about how I don't want to build Strats and Tellies or blah, 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 but doing kind of like cover songs, that's what Paul Reed Smith would call this. Doing a cover is a cool thing. And do a couple, three of them. Here's, that one has a rosewood neck, and here's one, one almost exactly the same with a maple neck. These are almost ready to put together and put strings on, but doing some versions of the classics, whether it's you know, a classic Stratocaster or a Gibson Les Paul, or if you're feeling really daring, I did a handful of 4001 basses many years ago, and I shall never do another one, but boy, I learned a lot about the Rickenbacker build process. And you can learn a lot about the other processes too, and it gives you a good idea of where you want to be or maybe where you don't want to be. So doing some versions of the classic guitars, that's something that Matt would do. I'm here in the paint booth now to talk about something that is very near and dear to me when it comes to what I would do, and that is to constantly ask questions and constantly try to refine your process, especially when it comes to finishing. What I would do is don't be afraid of new products. One of the things that we are testing right now is UV Cure paints, and it's not inexpensive to jump into UV Cure. You've got to have, well, like for example, this is just a small little UV light here, and these and has a power supply. This one is very small, kind of for spot work. We have a bigger one that we're going to be using in some upcoming videos to demonstrate to you guys how we use UV pore filler, UV sealer, UV top coat, stuff like that. It's something that's brand new to us, but it's something that shows a lot of promise. Lots of other companies have been doing it for longer than we have. They've kind of, you know, blazed the trail down that path. But it's very easy to kind of get set in your ways and miss out on what's happening, or to use something traditional just for the sake of it being traditional. So we'll still use nitrocellulose lacquer on some things, very rarely. We mostly spray polyester sealer coats these days. We're switching over to a lot of UV stuff. We do urethane. We do lots and lots of different finishes, but there was a time when we exclusively sprayed nitrocellulose and acrylic lacquer. And had we stayed in those days, I don't think that we would be where we are today. If we hadn't kind of tried some new stuff for us that other people have been using for many years, it would have stifled our growth. It would have stymied us as guitar builders. So constantly be asking questions, constantly be thinking about better ways to do stuff, and especially when it comes to finish. Sometimes it can sting a lot when you have to shell out those bucks, but I guarantee you that if you land on something you like, you can get more money, you can't get more time. And going back and having guitars that look how you want them to look in the finish department is going to pay off big, and you can't put a price on that. So you want to know what I would do when it comes to finishing? I would try new stuff all the time. That's what I would do. Now, I wouldn't just try new stuff when I'm in the finishing room. I'd also try some new stuff, new techniques when you're in the wood shop too. So you guys might remember a video that I did a while ago where I used specially designed tone wood indexing pins for attaching fretboards. Well, I don't do that anymore because I glue on fretboards now without the fret slots in place. And the way that I do that is I have some indexing pins. I've got 2 here and 2 here, and I actually put my my whole neck on a jig that I made, and I drag the whole thing through my radial arm saw, and I cut the fret slots that way. We'll do a video on that coming up pretty soon, but the point I'm trying to make is there was a time when I would do the fretboard first and then glue it on, and sometimes it would shift around, and so, we had to get good at putting it on. This way made life way easier because it's perfect every time. So I would try to come up with new ways to do stuff in the wood shop that makes your life a little bit easier. If you can save 5, 10, 15 minutes here and there building guitars, that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. So this is one example of what I would do to do new stuff in the wood shop. I'm sure you guys can think of lots of other ideas too. I just got an email today, someone asking me where I would get acrylic templates for Telecaster neck. What I would do, sir, is I would talk to Steve at Maximum Guitar Works and get one of his Tele acrylic, I don't know if you can see it in there, I'm going to put it against my shirt, one of his acrylic Tele sets. This one is a body. He's got all kinds of different ones. This one is actually a 24 and 3/4 neck. And on the headstock, Steve did me in a solid, and he wrote, Paul Reed Smith was asked, how does it feel to be the best guitar builder in the world? He replied, I don't know, you should ask Texas Toast. See, right there, in the old... So you guys can pause the video there and you can see it if you don't believe me. But yeah, I would, if you're looking for acrylic templates, I would talk to Steve at Maximum Guitar Works, link in the description below. I have 2 tools that I use for thicknessing material. One is the planer and the other is the sander. If you are going to use exotic or fancy figured wood, I would advise that you get close to the thickness that you want with a tool that cuts with a blade and makes chips. Maybe, like really close, but I wouldn't go all the way because woods like quilt maple and flame maple can have a tendency to chip and throw stuff out when you're using a cutter with a knife. Even one with, like this one here has the helical cutter with the little individual carbide blades. That'll have less tear out than one big blade, but still, I would start with this and I would finish with the sander. In fact, if I could only have one tool, I think I would have the sander. It's slower, but it's guaranteed to not chip out and have any tear out and things like that. But if you're asking me what I would do, I would have a thicknessing planer with a knife and a thicknessing sander with a sandpaper drum to get your nice woods nice and exactly the right thickness and with no tear out. Oh, the other thing is if it was me, and it is, I would get a thickness sander that's closed on both sides, not an open one. I had an open one for a while, and I like the closed one. It can't flex at all. So you're asking me what I would do? That's what I would do. Another one of the things that I would do is encourage you to build some shop-made tools specific for what you're doing. One that I made a long time ago and I get a bunch of questions on is our deadhead sander. This deadhead sander started out as just a regular edge sander, and I built this this platen for it from lots of different pieces of plywood that I stacked up, and I had to make it a little thicker here. And I found a place where I could get some custom-made belts. Ooh, and I put that spooky thing on there like Animal Mother, the Oppenheimer quote. And by the way, that is the Oppenheimer quote. It doesn't have the word have in it. It has the word am in it. Anyway, this is the tool that we use for making necks, and I don't have any plans for this. I just sort of had to kind of make it and make sure that it worked and kind of adjust as I went. But sometimes shop-built tools are really super cool, and especially this deadhead sander. Another thing that I would encourage you guys to do, if you were to ask me, hey Matt, what would you do? When it comes to your router table, I would get a couple of different routers and just leave the bits in them that you use the most. Like for example, this Infinity flush trim bit just sort of lives in this router. And the only reason it ever comes out is when I replace it with a new one. We have another router that has, this one has a trim bit in it for doing pick guards. You can see there's pick guard crap all over the place. But if you discover that you use flush trim bits a lot, having one that just stays in the router might be really handy. Or if you discover that you use the, I don't know, 1/2 inch round over more than anything else, you might want to just have a router that's specifically set up to work with a 1/2 inch router cutter in it all the time. And that adds a little versatility to your router table, because I don't recommend that you have like 4 or 5 router tables set up and ready to go, but if you have like a quick attach collar system for your routers, you can just pop them in there and it's way faster. You know what, belay that. I would say that if you had 4 or 5 router tables each set up to do a specific job, that's even cooler. But in case you don't have the room and you're asking me what I would do, I'd get a handful of routers and just keep specific bits in them. It's a cool thing to do. It saves you a lot of time. One thing I get asked often is if I was just going to buy one big tool that was specially made for guitar building, what would it be? And a lot of people think I would say the pin router or the shaper or the deadhead sander. The fact of the matter is that the one tool that's specific for guitar making that is worth the money, and I would buy it again if I had to, would be the fretboard radius sander. It takes a job that is a real pain in the butt to get right with a block and turns it into a few minutes. So every guitar that we build probably spends 2 to 3 minutes on this machine here. Now, in the grand scheme of things, let's say it takes 40 hours to build a guitar, 2 or 3 minutes isn't that big of a thing. But guys, let me tell you, this machine or machines like it, someone from Warmoth actually was telling me about the one that they had there that they used to do the very first conical radius stuff that Warmoth did back in the whenever that was days. This one will do that. This one's from Grizzly. You don't have to buy the Grizzly one, but just get one that works for you. This is worth the footprint that it takes up. It is worth the expense that it was to buy this machine. I never want to go back to doing fretboards the old school way with a block and hand power or shove the neck over the block, whatever you're doing. This machine right here is, if I was going to buy a guitar specific tool, because presumably I was going to make a lot of guitars, this is a place where I would invest the money right away. Getting your fretboard right is going to be worth it every time. So you're asking me what I would do? This is what I would do. Boy, there's a lot of these things that I could talk about. In fact, just thinking about all the stuff that I would tell people to do if they were to ask me questions about that, I could go on for hours. But I have one more thing that I would tell you guys I would do if you were to ask me what I would do, and that is to buy a really good set of small hand tools. I have no fewer than 8 or 9 of these boxes. The reason that I have that many of what I'm about to show you in these boxes is because when we have people come out to workshops, I like everybody to have a good set. So let's jump in here. I'm going to show you what I would buy, and this is stuff for like doing fret work and nut work and things like that. So let me show you what's in here and then we'll wrap up the video for today. Okay, so remember, this is me telling you what I would do. I have a bunch of these toolboxes, and everybody who comes out to the the workshop has access to these toolboxes. There's a bunch of tools in here that I think everybody should have. The first thing that I think you absolutely have to have is a good set of nut files. These are from Stu Mac. These were kind of expensive, but I have had my own personal set of these I've had for years and years and years. And they are still going strong. The other cool thing about all the tools from Stu Mac is they come with a lifetime warranty. So unlike the stuff that you get from Joe Nut File at Amazon or whatever, these guys come from a reputable company and they're going to be around for a long time. Here's a set of I think the highest power reading glasses I can get. These are number 3s. Get something because most people can't see. Couple of sets of fret nippers. These came from my friends at Bitterroot Guitars, John and Cheryl, link in the description below. When it comes to crowning frets and doing that, this Stu Mac Z file is positively the best file that you can buy. Whether you get the Safe Edge or the original, whatever all the other stuff is, get this and you will not be disappointed. Having a tool to do tuners and things. This one is just a standard 10mm socket head. This what is this? This is a string action guide card. It's on steel and it's got a bunch of numbers in it. I've done a video where I compared the one that the Amazon kind of junky one. Get the good one, okay? This one, see how this one has actual lines on it rather than black marks. Get the good one, whether you get it from this one's a Diodario one or Stu Mac, whatever you prefer. Good fret rocker, some screwdrivers, stuff like that. Good set of digital calipers, a little screwdriver set. This one is from Music Nomad. That's pretty good. There's a fret hammer, this fret vise, all this stuff. Get some good tools for setting up and kind of like doing guitar work. It will pay for itself, not immediately, but it will pay for itself sooner than you think. And like I say, keep them in a nice box like this so you always know where it is. And that's the good stuff. It will not let you down. You asked what I would do, this is what I would do. All right, so that was actually really fun. I had a good time telling you guys what I would do. The one last thing I want to tell you that I would do is if you're just starting out building guitars, try to fight the urge to build the best possible guitar that you've ever seen in your life. Just try to build a good one. Start with good wood that isn't a compromised wood. Mahogany is always a good choice. Like I said, this is the neck for the acoustic guitar that I'm going to build. Guys, I haven't built an acoustic guitar in over 3 decades. So I could have chosen all kinds of crazy neat wood, but I called up my buddy Dan at Tonewood Experts. I said, Dan, I just need something plain. So he sent me some mahogany sides, he sent me a spruce top and a cedar top, and he sent me some neck blanks. And it's not going to be fancy, but it's going to be good. And I'm gonna make a bunch of mistakes. I'm going to take you guys along for the ride, and I'm going to show you guys how I would do stuff and how I'm going to do stuff. And I'm really looking forward to that. What I would not do is make my life more complicated by using fancy woods or highly figured woods or very expensive woods or even reclaimed woods. I wanted to start with something that was good and easy to work with and comparatively speaking and wouldn't break the bank. So I'm not using a lot of expensive materials. I'm not using anything fancy, and I'm not using anything reclaimed. I don't have a bunch of railroad ties in here and I'm taking them to resaw and stuff. Starting with some sane choices. You guys know how it is here. Once I do 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 can't be too far behind. So the first one might look a little bit plain, but I guarantee you by the 3rd or 4th or 5th one, we'll start to do some crazy stuff. We'll probably do some cutaways and we'll use some fancier wood and we'll start actually resawing our own back and sides and stuff. But for the first couple, Dan was nice enough to hook me up, and he'll hook you guys up too. In fact, link in the description below for all the people that I've talked about who support the channel, and some of them have discount codes. I urge you to use those. And here's another thing I would do. Have fun building guitars, and learn to build some cool stuff, and take your time, get invested in it, and you will not be disappointed after several decades when you have a great big library of work that you did. And yeah, and you'll start, if you start with something that is that's not that big of a deal when you make mistakes, and you will, that's okay. You won't feel too bad. In fact, you'll feel a little bit more confident when it comes time to work with, you know, fiddleback maples and Brazilian rosewoods and stuff like that. Don't jump in feet first into the deep end if you can't swim, right? Learn to crawl before you run and jump and stuff like that. Okay, guys, if you like this kind of thing, let me know. I've had a good time doing this. If you guys have anything you'd like to know what I would say to do, I don't know why you would, but if you do, if you like the idea of what would Matt do, please let me know in the comment section below. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe we could do another one of these videos and I can answer your specific questions, tell you what I would do in that instance. But if you like this kind of thing, give me the thumbs up. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so. It's free to subscribe and it's fun to subscribe, and we have neat stuff coming at you all the time, live videos and pre-recorded stuff. If you like the stuff that we do, please check out our Patreon page or join us here on Facebook. Even $1 a month goes a long way to helping us bring you guys neat stuff like this. As always, support our sponsors. We're always looking for new sponsors, especially if we love the products. We're not gonna have a sponsor that we don't like. Okay, all right. So, gang, this is Matt at Texas Toast reminding you that if you're so smart, start your own YouTube channel. That's another thing I would do. So, if you're so smart, start your own YouTube channel. That's what I did, and we'll see you next time, guys. Have a great week.